Do you ever wonder what film producers do as opposed to film directors? We're going to talk to an Emmy Award-winning producer today on St. Louis in Tune. Well, greetings, listeners in Listenerland. Welcome to St. Louis in Tune, and thank you for joining us for fresh perspectives on issues and events with experts, community leaders, and everyday people who make a difference in shaping our society and world. I'm Arnold Stricker, along with co-host Mark Langston. Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. I'm intrigued. The difference between a producer and a director.
Sometimes I think producers don't get the love.
Oh, no, they don't. No. And isn't it their money that's making the whole thing happen or something like that? I don't know.
They're like the wheels behind the machine. That's what I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
We'll find out from our guest here in a moment. But first, our return to civility. We like to return to civility and encourage everyone to return that way. Perform company service projects. Require employees to volunteer at least 3 times per year and offer them time away from the office to do so. Once a month, organize 4 to 10 people to either deliver hot meals to shut-ins or go help out at a local food shelf.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
It really builds a lot of unity and an investment in the community in which the business is located.
Oh, yeah. And folks that wouldn't normally do that type of volunteer work, it's helping them get into it a little bit and reaching out and helping our fellow person.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, they might go, require them to do that?
Yeah, there are.
Require them to volunteer?
A couple of companies do that. They give them a nice T-shirt, I think, usually. Or
clean up kinds of things. And
get a day off.
Yeah.
Build camaraderie with your fellow workers and things like that.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great idea. I wish more companies would do it. Maybe they do, and I just don't see it.
And more companies involved in kind of what I would call social aspects of the community. And our guest is one who invests that way also. Our guest is Mark Maxey. He's an Emmy Award-winning producer and president of Rolling Pictures, which is a motion picture production company in Burbank, California. His recent productions include the political thriller Words of War, also Space Oddity, which stars Kevin Bacon, and also Mayim Bialik. She directed, that was her debut. As They Made Us, another one by Dustin Hoffman and Candice Bergen, starred in that. Rare Objects, many others. The Kill Room, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Uma Thurman.
Wow.
Maxey is on the National Board of the Producers Guild of America and is a voting member of the Television Academy. He is co-founder and chairman emeritus of the Washington West Film Festival, the only film festival to donate, get this, Mark, 100% of box office proceeds to help at-risk youth and families in need.
Oh, good for them.
He serves on the board of Women in Film and Video, Artistic Fuel Foundation, and the Rock and Roll for Children Foundation, benefiting families fighting pediatric cancer at the Children's Inn at the National Institute of Health. He's a longtime supporter and volunteer for the USO, supporting American men and women in uniform and their families and Kids in the Spotlight, which changes outcomes for at-risk foster youth in Los Angeles through innovative visual arts programs. He puts his money where his mouth is, the social aspect in helping the community. Mark Maxey, welcome to St. Louis in Tune.
Wow.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Arnold.
It almost sounds like a presentation for an Emmy or something.
He's won one. He's won. How long was that speech when you got up there and received that award, Mark?
It was shorter than the introduction.
They had the big hook over there on the side going, okay.
Well, we want people to know that you have a very good pedigree of what you do. We just don't throw everyday people out here who have done nothing. We have everyday people who have contributed to our world and everything like that. So take us back to Lawrence, Kansas, which I'm very familiar with. And I'm very familiar with, I'll tell the audience, I'm very familiar with the family. And actually, Mark's father was my clarinet professor.
Oh.
And I got to know the family and actually stay in the home when they were on sabbatical. But tell us a little bit about how you got involved in what you're doing.
Yeah, as you mentioned, my father and actually both my parents are classical musicians. So I grew up in a household that was very focused on music and the arts, which was just a great way to be raised. I always loved film and the visual arts. And that in part may have been because across from where I was raised was the only film studio in Mars, Kansas, was across the street from our house. It was an early introduction to just the magic of movie making and what went on in that. We were extras in some of the films that they did there. It was mostly educational things. That's where I learned about video and sound and lighting and craft services and all the different elements that go into putting together a production.
And got the bug. It sounds like that's a good place to get the bug, right across the street. That's
yeah,
it's amazing.
It was just a magical place and perhaps an inspiration that returns later on.
And a pretty famous place, Centron Film Studios, that was pretty prominent at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, for their neat educational films especially. They were a very well-respected, award-winning film production studio there. On the commercial side, they're perhaps best known for the cult classic B-movie Carnival of Souls, which was one of their few commercial ventures in the 60s that was a double feature at the drive-in back in the day.
Now, did you go on to get a degree in filmmaking or journalism, or what happened? How did that proceed from there?
Yeah, no. So I was not one of those people that wanted to be a filmmaker when I grew up, and so that is not what I pursued academically. I really school. I moved to the East Coast and was working for a technology company in the interactive television space, but I was part of the marketing department there, and then that kind of evolved into a role with a production company doing television and corporate and industrial production, and I fell into the role of producer. I started off putting together projects and productions and budgets and teams and then crafting stories, and I just found my place. But I was not one of the kids that grew up making movies in my backyard with my friends and dreamed of going to film school and being George Lucas or Steven Spielberg. That
Love it.
was not my original plan. I just fell into it.
And you've had an opportunity to work with Lucas, haven't you?
Oh, no. I've worked with people that have worked with them, but I've not yet had the opportunity to work with them directly. No.
You've also written, and you're known as a producer, but you've written, produced, and directed something on your own.
Can I ask Mark real quick? This goes along the same lines that you're talking about. You are a producer, a director, and a writer. Is there one of those that you like best?
Oh, yes, I'm a producer. I wish I could write, and I'm envious of the people who have that gift, but it eludes me largely. I know enough good writers and good directors to know that I am neither, in the same way that I can change the oil in my car, but that doesn't mean that I should. Right?
Well put.
I'm a producer. That's where I sit best. The project that you mentioned that I directed and wrote and produced was a very personal story. It's a documentary about my dear friend and partner in rolling pictures, Stuffy Walden. Stuffy is just a remarkable person, perhaps best known for being the composer of such hit television shows as The West Wing, The Wonder Years, 30-something, Friday Night Lights, and 80 other television programs that you've heard of. He's just a remarkable man and brilliant composer. And the film that I did was really a look at his journey musically. He started off in the 70s as a touring guitar player. He toured with Emerson, Lake and Palmer and, recorded with Stevie Wonder and toured with Chaka Khan and just had this incredible career during the 70s in the heyday of sex, drugs, rock and roll. And his success led to the excesses of that era. And at a certain point in his career, he chose sobriety. He realized that he was on a self-destructive path and needed to get sober. And when you're a touring guitar player, that's all you know. And once he got sober, he realized he couldn't go back out and keep doing what he'd been doing, or he'd fall back into the lifestyle he was trying to escape from. So he, at that point, had to reinvent himself. And that's when he got into scoring for television and film. And it's just a remarkable look at his journey. And it's much a story of redemption as it is a musical look at his career. But that was a very personal story that we told through his friends. So the people in the film, Aaron Sorkin, Martin Sheen, Fred Savage, Tom Arnold, the guitar player for Toto and the keyboard player for The Who and the drummer for the band Chicago. And through their stories, we reveal who Snuffy is. And the other thing about Snuffy I'll mention is that one of the themes of that film and of his life is of being of service to others, which kind of fits in with how you started this program, which is beautifully, because his whole reason for living is to be of service to others. And that's just such a beautiful thing. And I think the world needs more of that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's talk about that, because the organization that you have, that you are president of, really has a social responsibility. And we mentioned that at the front end when I read a little of your bio. What was the impetus behind that? And I know just even in D.C. with the Washington Film Festival and the proceeds, was there discussion amongst the people of the film festival or of rolling pictures? And like, what are we going to do with this? Should we save this for new artists, or should we just help the community? How was that process?
Yeah, in the case of the Washington West Film Festival specifically, that was the brainchild of a friend of mine, Brad Russell, who conceived of this idea of starting a film festival, but using it as an agent for good to change the world for the better. So the kind of the tagline, the mantra for the festival, the story can change the world. And I believe that, through stories and visual and musical arts, you can make the world a better place. And as part of that, we wanted to take 100% of the box office and use it to solve an area of need in the community, not just in a oversized tech photo op sort of way, which oftentimes is what fundraisers turn into, but in a very targeted, specific way. So much so that we would actually create a short film that would play at the next year's festival that showed how the funds were used and the impact it had on the community being helped, so that the audience could see the impact that they were having just by buying a ticket and participating in the festival that year. It's just a beautiful thing that's evolved over the last 12 years. And it's something I'm very proud to still be part of, or we're preparing for our next festival, which will take place in October.
I think that's just an outstanding way to do that, especially showing people the following year, hey, this is where the funds went.
Yeah.
And have other organizations in the D.C. area and even in the California Burbank area picked up on that theme, like giving back to the community in some social responsibility ways?
I think a lot of people are. I can tell you that from a business perspective, giving away your largest source of revenue is a terrible business model. I don't think other festivals have necessarily embraced or adopted what we do here. But certainly that commitment to service. I mean, one of the things that we're doing now, actually in partnership with Kevin Bacon, is someone you had mentioned in my introduction, I've had the pleasure of working with and knowing. He has a foundation called 6 Degrees, and Washington West Film Festival and Kevin Bacon's foundation have teamed up to create a service day. So we're going to bring 100 volunteers from the festival. We're inviting our audiences to participate in this, and we're going to put together backpacks and supplies and things that are needed that will be distributed throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia to foster kids and at-risk youth. That's an example of leveraging the festival and taking it beyond the screen into the community and have a positive impact on people in need around us.
Bravo.
Yes.
Anytime you can help at-risk youth.
Yes.
I've been involved in projects that have. It's so worthwhile. It makes such a difference, an impact on the community and on these young lives and where they end up as they grow. It just gives them a new perspective on what life in society is all about. Bravo to you, Mark, for your efforts there. You don't need me to tell you that, but good for you. Yeah.
This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston of St. Louis in Tune. We're talking to Mark Maxey. He is a film producer. And Mark, I guess the question that we teased the audience with at the beginning was the difference between a producer and director. And I said, producers don't get a lot of love because their name's not last on the screen. And it seems like you do all the front work and a director does the work with the actors. Explain that, yes or no? Am I right or wrong on that stuff?
No, you're spot on. I think producer is one of the most misunderstood roles in Hollywood. My father recently shared with me a quote from Hal Wallace, who was a prominent producer back in the 40s and 50s of films like Casablanca. And even at his time, he was trying to explain what a producer does. And he explained it as the producer is the person who chooses the film he's going to make and hires the writers and decides what will be filmed and chooses who the director will be and the cast and all the different aspects of the production. And I think that's true. The director, it's the director's vision that's translated to film, and it's the director's vision that audience sees. But it's the producer that puts all the pieces in place that enables that director's vision to be realized. Another way of looking at it is that, and this is one of the things I love about film, is that it's such a collaborative medium. So if you watch a movie, you see all the names and the credits at the end. It takes so many people, each in their own role, working together in concert perfectly to create the 2-hour film that you see. But someone has to hire those people, and someone has to do the logistics and make sure that everything's in place and have the permits and have the funding and have the trucks and the equipment and the stages and the actors, and it all has to be in place. There's writers and people that are involved in preparing for production. There's all the department heads and the director that are involved in the actual production. Once production is finished, then in post-production, there's editors and composers and colorists and sound people doing the things that they do necessary to deliver the film. And then there's the people that sell it and distribute it. And there's different roles in each of those phases. The producer is the only one that's there from the beginning to the end.
Wow.
And that's why if you watch the Oscars, there's awards for Best Actor and Best Director and Best Costumes and Makeup and all the other heads of department that go into creating the film. But when the Oscar is given for Best Picture, it's given to the producer, because it was the producer that put all those pieces in place and allowed that to happen.
God, that corrects me, because I didn't know that. I always thought the director got that award, but it is the producers.
I'll be darned. Wow.
And rightfully so.
Sometimes I see numerous producers, even maybe one of the stars of the piece is one of the producers. I've always found that to be fascinating too. There's 3 or 4 producers, and one of them is the star of the show, and that's been interesting.
Well, that's one of the challenges, I think, for producers as a whole, is that there's many different types of producers and many different types of producer credits. So there's executive producers and associate producers, co-producers, and they each kind of serve a different role and have a different function. And even between film and television is different. On film, an executive producer is oftentimes a financier, or in some cases, an actor who contributed to enabling the film to get made in some meaningful way. And in television, the executive producer is oftentimes the head writer and was in a very creative, hands-on role.
Wow.
Even between television and film, the titles don't always mean the same thing. So I think that adds to somewhat of the mystery that surrounds the role of producer. And
it is amazing, Mark, too, to watch those credits, like you said before. It's so many people, so many hands are involved in making a film that lasts a couple hours. It's which is, I know, takes years sometimes to make, but wow, the amount of people, the logistics that have to be involved. Yeah. You wonder, why is anybody making a movie? I've seen some, wow. And sometimes they've got a whole nother crew in a whole nother country. It's just amazing to me how it all comes together. It's above my,
It's like on a larger scale, I think similar to what an orchestra is. In an orchestra, you have all these different instruments, and they each have their different parts, and they all have to work together in perfect harmony to create the result that is the music that's being performed. And with film, it's just the visual interpretation of that, I think.
That's a great analogy. That's a great analogy. Yeah. Now, I know you mentioned film and television, and you've worked in both mediums. And obviously you're now really in film, but discuss a little bit why you like film more than you like television, because you've done a lot with armed services, and we're going to get into that in a little bit, but why do you like film more than the television side of it?
Yeah, so the television work I've done has been unscripted and generally special. I'm not creating the Big Bang Theory or Friends or episodic entertainment series. The television programs I've been part of have been Marvin Hamlet and the National Symphony doing a live broadcast from the Kennedy Center for the troops at Christmas Eve. That was a PBS special. It's things like that. It's been very singularly focused and generally unscripted, which was incredibly rewarding work. And the stories that I was privileged to help tell on those programs are stories that are near and dear to me to this day. But there you're telling someone else's story, and part of the magic of film is creating your own story. And so that's one of the reasons why I think I gravitated toward narrative film, scripted film, is that it's a chance to create something from scratch that is a story that hadn't been told yet. And it's a very different process than what I've been doing with the television productions I've been involved with. And for me, it's just a little more fun. And I did a lot of that earlier in my career, the unscripted side of things. And then I reached a point in my career where I looked at the next 20 years and thought, do I want them to look like the last 20, or do I want them to look different? And so that was the moment that I created Rolling Pictures and focused solely on narrative film, which is what I've been doing since. And just loving, the stories I'm telling and the people I'm working with every day when I get up. I'm excited to get to work.
That's a great place to be, because, man, if you don't like what you're doing and you're miserable, everybody else is miserable around you, it seems. Yeah. And we're gonna take a quick break and come back, because I've got some questions related to that, what you were just talking about, narrative films. And we've got a couple other things we want to discuss related to your work with the Armed Services and what projects you're currently working on, and what's down the road in the industry and for your career. This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston of St. Louis in Tune. We'll be right back. The United States has a strong tradition of welcoming newcomers and refugees. The Welcome Corps is a new service opportunity for Americans inspired to welcome those seeking freedom and safety, and in turn help strengthen their own communities. Welcome Corps is a public-private partnership that is inspired by what Americans represent to so many around the world, a beacon of hope and refuge. All it takes is a helping hand. Are you ready to learn more? Contact the International Institute of St. Louis at info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090. That's info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090.
El Potro Restaurant and Market, located at 6922 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland, offers the finest variety of Mexican and Central American groceries and goods. El Potro Restaurant serves authentic Mexican and Central American cuisine, including daily specials, not to mention the best horchatas and tastiest margaritas in St. Louis. Open Tuesday through Sunday. El Potro, 6922 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland. Find them online at elpotrostl.com.
Welcome back to St. Louis in Tune. This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston. We are talking with Emmy Award-winning producer Mark Maxey from Rolling Pictures. And Mark, as promised, what do you see is, you mentioned the importance of narrative, and I guess my question relates to this. What is it about storytelling and narratives that resonates with people?
I'm not sure. Different people connect with different elements of story, but one of the things that I think film does is exposes us to new worlds or new ideas, or takes us into places we couldn't go, or experience things that we haven't experienced, or in some ways helps us connect with things that is relevant to us, that we have experienced in a different sort of way. So I think that's just the magic of film, is that it can be so many things to so many different people, as opposed to a documentary or something that's not scripted, that's when you're making a documentary, it's like journalism. You're sticking to the facts and trying to faithfully tell the story, using the people and places that were part of it. And with a narrative film, choose your own adventure. You could make it anything. And it's that creative freedom, I think, that it's just the magic of film. And it's one of the reasons why I'm really enjoying the stories that I'm part of today.
How do you go about choosing a story that you want to be involved with, that you want to produce?
Yeah, that's a great question. All the stories that I've been part of have come to me from someone that I know, and I get a lot of scripts. There's just a lot of great ideas and great stories and great material out there. And we're not a huge company. We're doing a couple films a year, not dozens. I tend to be very choosy and selective with the project that Rolling Pictures gets involved with and the stories that we tell. I think in all cases, the stories have been character-driven and compelling, at least for me. You mentioned I had the good fortune of helping produce Mayim Bialik's directorial debut, As They Made Us, which starred Dustin Hoffman as an abusive father and Candice Bergen as an alcoholic mother. And that was a very different kind of story than Space Oddity, which was directed by Kira Sedgwick and starred Kevin Bacon and Alexander Shipp and Kyle Allen, which was more of a love story, just completely different, but in both cases, very character-driven, very compelling, and stories that, in some level, I just thought were worthy of sharing with the world.
And the response on those has been really good.
Yeah, I think that's as much a testament to the director and the actors as it is to me as a producer. Again, I just put the pieces in place, but they're the ones that actually make the magic happen. But yes, I am grateful that those films have been as well received as they have, and with the next film that I have, which you had mentioned, Words of War, which out in the spring of next year, theatrically in the U.S. and then elsewhere around the world. That's the story of an American-born woman who was a Russian journalist who early in the Putin administration exposed some of the atrocities of what he was doing at that time to the people in Chechnya, and was poisoned on a flight from Moscow and survived, and detained and harassed, but persevered and continued to write truthfully about what was happening in Russia, and ultimately was silent. And hers is just one story of more than 1,800 journalists who have been killed so far just this century. And I think that's just a staggering statistic and an important subject that I think more people should be aware of. Through bringing this woman, her name is Anna Politkovskaya, bringing her story to audiences, hopefully will be just a reminder of the importance of the work that journalists do, the importance of protecting a free press, and journalists' right to report what is happening truthfully without fear of death or reprisal. Those types of stories.
So important.
I think.
So important.
Yeah.
Now, your Emmy was for the honors, A Salute to American Heroes, and that was in 2014, but you've also done some television specials that really related to our veterans, American Valor, Salute to Veterans, the Wounded Warrior Experience, National Memorial Day Parade, and as you mentioned, the holiday concert for the troops with Marvin Hamlish. What is it about? Is it just D.C.? Is it the environment of veterans that, or at the time when you were, where you were working and how you were working, that was projects that you were really embracing?
Yeah, I did not wear the uniform, but my father did, as did so many others in his generation and in generations before. And I have so much respect for the men and women that do serve in the armed forces. At that time, this was during the Bush administration, 9/11 had happened. We were at war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we're deploying large numbers of people overseas. And there were so many stories of heroism and valor and courage and service that, it just made sense to try to share some of those with viewing audiences here back home. So each of those programs you mentioned all focused on different American heroes and from our servicemen and women. And it's truly just remarkable stories that was an honor to help shine a spotlight on. Unsung heroes, everyday heroes.
Now, you live in the D.C. metro area, but the Rolling Pictures is in Burbank, so I know electronic media is great, phones and Skype and Zoom and all that stuff. Do you travel back and forth from coast to coast, or how do you deal with all of that?
I do, yeah. I go where the work dictates. So the company's based in California. I choose to reside on the East Coast, which has been my home since I left Kansas, actually. And then the work is where it is. So the Words of War film I mentioned had me living in Latvia. We filmed that in Eastern Europe because in the film it was set in Moscow, and we needed someplace that looked like Moscow but was safe for us to work in. We spent several months in Latvia For the Kira Sedgwick, Kevin Bacon film, we filmed that on a flower farm in Rhode Island. So it was a month in Rhode Island. Or the Dustin Hoffman film, we filmed in New Jersey. So it was spending 4 or 5 weeks in New Jersey. In my work, I tend to go where the work is, which gives me the freedom to live where I want and then have my company where I want.
Now, as you look back on your career, what are you most proud of in your accomplishments? What are we've mentioned highlights and things, but do some things rise to the surface above others?
I don't know. I think I'm most proud of my kids.
Good for you.
I think my greatest work, my greatest accomplishment is producing 2 remarkable young men. One of whom is a music educator, as was my father. He was a choir kid growing up and is now a music teacher for Loudoun County Public Schools in Virginia. And then my other son is getting a master's in psychology, currently having completed his undergraduate in philosophy and psychology at Michigan State. I think they're my 2 greatest accomplishments or contributions to the world. But I think if I had to choose a favorite film or a favorite story, I think it's always the next one. So in this case, it would be the story about the journalist. I think that's currently my favorite. I'm always excited about what's next.
Very compelling story.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Fantastic. You've met quite a few people. Do you ever get autographs from these folks? That's a crazy.
It's funny. I don't. I've never been an autograph seeker, and I do have a few photos of people from over the years, which has been fun. But yeah, I think for maybe the Up to Snuff story was perhaps the most rewarding for me personally in that sense, because not only is Snuffy a friend, but I liked The West Wing. I liked The Wonder Years. I liked the shows that he had worked on. So to tell his story by sitting down with, and I spent my birthday with Martin Sheen one year because he was who we were interviewing that day for that film. Or Aaron Sorkin is one of my favorite television writers. And so to be able to sit down with Aaron and talk about his stories about working with Snuffy and why Snuffy has been such an inspiration for him, those were real treats for me. That's where it doesn't feel like work. I feel like I'm getting the better end of that deal. I just really enjoyed the people that were part of telling his story.
Mark, you're not in Kansas anymore. That's for sure. What a journey to end up in Burbank, California from Kansas. It just happens, right? I mean,
absolutely.
It's one of those things that you follow your dream, you follow your heart, and just find out where you end up. It's just amazing.
Indeed. And that's one of the things I tell my kids is follow the fun. If you're having fun and if you love what you do, then every day is a good day, and going to work doesn't feel like going to work. So I think that's such an important lesson that some people don't learn early enough in life, is to follow the fun.
Yeah. Right. So you pinch yourself every so often?
I am in awe of where I am and the things that I'm doing and the people that I'm fortunate enough to work with. Yeah, no one's more surprised than I at where I am.
Yeah, and I'm sure they feel the same way about you, though, Mark. I'm sure they're. I do. I bet they do. They say, I'm working with a fantastic producer here, and they put a lot of faith and trust into you, I think, as well. And it says a lot, I think. I don't think they would do that if they didn't have that faith and trust in you.
That's true.
They wouldn't do it with me.
That's why producers don't get the love at first. But when you look back on a production that's completed, what immense work went into organizing and the logistics of that's crazy.
And the money. I don't understand how they find the money for some of these projects. It's got to be.
Where do they find the money, Mark?
It's a remarkable feat.
Yeah. Financing and distribution are the 2 most challenging aspects, at least in my experience, independent filmmakers. I think if you're working with a big Hollywood studio, it's easy because the money and the distribution is provided through the studio. But for companies like Rolling Pictures, it falls to us, package and finance and produce and then sell to a distributor of the book that we've created. So those are definitely the things that make it feel like work. When it feels like work, it's definitely things related to financing and distribution. Sure.
So would you think some really great films may fall through the cracks because of distribution? Like, here's a fantastic film, but it never got the sea legs or whatever got the distribution that it really should have had? As a result, it didn't get out there like it should?
I think both films, there are films that have been made that didn't get the distribution it should have, and so aren't getting the visibility or having the impact that they could have. And then I think there are some stories that just never get told because things didn't line up. There's a screenplay that I had acquired the right to that was a story about a remarkable person of color who had a very unique place in American history. And I just thought this is the kind of story I wanted to help tell and the type of story I wanted to spotlight. But for a variety of reasons, we actually were able to find the funding to help put that together, but couldn't find the right team. We needed a very specific type of director. You want a director who loves the material as much as you do and makes it their own and has a vision for how to carry it forward. And it took a while to find the right person. And by the time that we did, I think the window had passed for making the kind of movie I wanted to make there. That's a story that I still think is a great story, but it may never be told. I think that's just one example. I was just reading actually, and maybe it's the New York Times or the Post, I forget, but there's a filmmaker that made a 9-hour documentary on the musician Prince. Yeah, the article said this may be the best movie about Prince that no one will ever see because of some kind of complication in the rights or the licensing or something to do with that film's production, where it's possible that film will never be released. So this filmmaker spent years making this 9-hour epic feature film about this incredible musician, and it's possible. I hope things turn around and the film is released. I love those types of stories. The Beatles documentary was brilliant. I just love that look behind the music and into these people that have been the soundtrack of our lives in the background. But yeah, that's another example of just for whatever the challenges are facing that project and that filmmaker. This article was lamenting that the film might never see the light of day, which would be tragic.
It would be.
Almost seems like there could be an industry waiting for distribution of these kind of films. I've heard of it before. We have another Movie and More show and they discuss this as a real issue with films that are great films that just aren't getting there. They're not getting out to the public. And it seems like such a shame. So much talent, so much effort, so much heart that goes into many of these films. And like you say, the Prince film may not even see the light of day. That's just tragic, I think. It really is.
It seems like that the money is in the big superhero tentpole franchises and films like Barbie, which are great films, and I'm glad that they did so well. But there's so many other stories that are not those that are equally deserving and equally compelling, that are just smaller films. There was a classic film called My Left Foot that was an award-winning film back in the day, starring Daniel Day-Lewis, that if that film were made today, I'm not sure it could get distributed. And it's just the market's in a different place, and audiences are in a different place, and stories like that might have been considered art house films 30 years ago are not as easily finding a home in a very crowded marketplace that is the state of the film industry today.
Is that why you see more film festivals popping up and really entrenching themselves in large cities or communities, and then films can make the circuit on those rather than like in the big box office kinds of things?
Yeah, I think film festivals play an important role for independent film, and I love film festivals, and not just my own, but I've been to dozens of festivals across the country, and I think that the stories that they find and the films that they share with audiences are powerful and oftentimes overlooked. I think that's an important way for filmmakers to connect with audiences. The downside is that it's not a good way to monetize a film. If you're making a film and it doesn't find any type of distribution beyond the film festival circuit, then you could even go make another film. It's not a model that helps sustain filmmakers, but it is an important step in a filmmaker's journey with the story to try to connect with audiences and gain the visibility necessary to hopefully secure a distribution deal that'll make the film more widely available.
Now, I know you've been asked this question multiple times, so you probably have it memorized. And I want you to approach it from two different ways. So the question is, you're talking to individuals maybe in high school or even middle school or even at the university level, and their interest in becoming a film producer or involved in the film industry. And then that's one perspective, but also the perspective that you're talking to yourself who had no idea you were going to end up in that industry. Mm-hmm. So what suggestions and what recommendations do you give?
And you can't say run.
Well, I tell you, I think that's one of the great things about this industry is that if you want to be a filmmaker, all you need to do is do it. You don't need anyone's stamp of approval. You don't need to go to a film school. You don't need a certain degree or a certification. Anyone can be a filmmaker. Anyone can be a storyteller. Anyone can put together a group of people and make a film or a story or a television program. It's just a matter of finding the right stories and surrounding yourself with the right people. And so I think that's one of the things that I learned early on is to surround yourself with people that are more talented than I am. If I'm the smartest person in the room, then I'm in the wrong room.
Me too.
That's the way I look at it. I think surround yourself with really talented people and you'll end up with really terrific results. So yeah, I think that would be my advice is just do it and then find other people that are as passionate and as or more talented and learn from each other and work together. It is a collaborative medium. It takes a village, but find your tribe and just go do it. And there's nothing that would stop anyone from being a filmmaker. And these days, I mean, my iPhone creates video that was better than what Casablanca was done on. It's amazing how technology has evolved. The tools have made everything more accessible. It used to be you'd have to go into an editing suite and pay lots of money and you're doing things on film. And It was a lot more difficult to make a film in the old days than it is today, and that with YouTube and the internet and TikTok and all these people that are now influencers and content creators, people are making a phenomenal living somehow just off of creating and sharing content with the public, which is just the same thing that a filmmaker is doing. I think it's an accessible, attainable goal. You just have to believe in yourself and do it.
Mm-hmm. Great advice. Great advice. We've been talking to Mark Maxey, who is a Emmy Award-winning producer. And Mark, it's been a real honor and privilege to talk to you, and it's been a long time in talking with you, and greatly appreciate your time today.
Yeah, got to get you back again soon. And
yeah, thank you both.
Yeah, I know it's early there in Burbank, California.
Oh, no, he's in D.C. area.
Oh, he's in D.C. Okay, I beg your pardon.
So he's got to get ready for lunch here.
Okay. All right. I thought you were in Burbank. Okay, my apologies.
Mark, thanks very much.
Thanks, Mark, so much.
Thank you, Arnold. Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
What a fun fella.
Oh, my gosh. The kinds of things that he has accomplished, not only the documentaries and the things with the military, but the movies and how he has intertwined himself in the film industry with Space Odyssey, Rare Objects, As They Made Us, Beyond 60, Up to Snuff, Burst the Silence, Words of War. These are the films, the projects that he's been involved with. Soul Prison, No Rain in Hell, another one. So, folks, you need to check out his website, rollingpictures.com, rollingpictures.com. And the kinds of people that he's surrounded himself, like what he was talking about, get yourself with people that are smarter than you, which isn't hard for me. I got to, everybody who I seem to see is smarter than me, and that's great. That's why I guess I love to be around people. And he has been involved with so many great actors and so many great directors.
Goodness. When you were going over that list, just Dustin Hoffman, Candice Bergen, Alan Cumming, Katie Holmes, I can't. Who else is on here? These are just a few. Jason Isaac, Ben Miles. I can't believe it.
Martin Sheen, Tom Arnold.
Yeah.
Aaron Sorkin.
I know it. Ed Asner.
So all of that, and that's one of the things that I think is really important. That
Arnold Stricker's on here.
No, he wouldn't be anywhere around that thing. What he said is so true. That, and I learned this, and I know you learned this, of what to do and what not to do. Mm-hmm. And you can be around really wonderful, intelligent people and watch what they do. Watching is very important. Listening is very important. And sometimes they make mistakes and sometimes they don't. And you remember, I need to remember the things that they did, and I remember the things that they did that didn't work. And those are all things and those are things you pass on to your kids so they don't have to learn those lessons again. And it sounds like he's done that with his sons. And kudos to him for doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was just a lot of fun to talk with Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We don't get Emmy award-winning
No, we don't.
guests often, but we are. Anyway.
I got to thank his mom and dad, Linda and Larry Maxey, who I know very well. And,
It's not what you know, it's who you know? Is that what you're saying?
Larry Maxey, my clarinet professor, was just an outstanding...
Does his dad play the clarinet?
Pardon me?
Does his dad play the clarinet?
Oh, dad, his father, yes, clarinet professor.
Really?
Yeah, he was clarinet professor.
Wow.
He was,
never
a really good clarinet player.
I don't mean to laugh, but you don't hear that there's a professor of clarinets.
Oh, yeah. If you go into clarinet performance or any kind of instrument performance, there's always a professor of that particular instrument.
Wow.
Who they've mastered that instrument.
Makes sense. But
and Dr. I call him Dr. Maxey. I won't call him Larry. Dr. Maxey, out of respect, he would say he's still learning. He's still accomplishing the instrument. But there's more to playing than just mastering the instrument. Right. There's life. Mm-hmm. There's the music. And how do you translate what's on a written page into something that people will enjoy? Mm-hmm. And then his mom, Linda, who I will call Linda because she was never one of my professors, is an outstanding marimbist, international acclaim.
Really?
Yes. And just outstanding individuals, people that you really like to be around, that you have great conversations with, that you learn from.
Right.
They are models and role models for you, and that kind of thing. The kudos to the Maxeys, Larry and Linda Maxey, for raising a great son, Mark, and they also have a daughter, Kim. And she's very successful also. So,
do we need to call you Dr. Arnold then?
You could, because I do have a doctorate in education.
So I should be Dr. Arnold.
I don't know that. I've been called a whole lot worse,
should
Mark.
Should be Dr. Stricker or Arnold? I don't know.
Yeah.
I like Dr. Arnold.
But I had a lot of fun and really seeing what he's done.
Oh, yeah.
And we've had a lot of film people on and talked to them through the New Jewish Film Festival also the St. Louis Film Festival, International Film Festival. And so those kinds of things. And it's always fascinating to talk to individuals who work like that and pick their brains and wonder what they're thinking and how they've come across different roles that they've played or how they've approached a different theater production or something like that.
Okay.
It's very fascinating.
Hope he comes back soon.
We'll have to have him back when he's done with that particular project and we get a chance to view it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, it sounds like a fascinating film.
A little review on it,
Yeah, sounds like a fascinating film.
Okay.
Do you have any days of the day, Mark?
Actually, there's a couple. National TV Dinner Day. Did you?
It takes me back to those Swansons
Yes,
that you peel
I
off, and
was
the peas
thinking
were
about
kind
it.
of fried, and what is it, Swiss steak and the mashed potatoes.
Yeah, Stouffer's
Ooh,
TV dinner.
I just can't wait. It's
Yeah.
mouth-watering.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the round building that's empty in downtown St. Louis used to be Stouffer's.
Yes.
Owned by the Stouffer's TV dinner people.
Really? I didn't know that. Wow.
It's Swap Ideas Day.
Oh.
It's a good day to swap ideas.
We do that every day.
Yes, we do. I know. Just a couple others here. Let's see. Libraries Remember Day. Libraries are treasure troves of knowledge, and you should think about that. National Hot Cross Buns Day. Where does this come
One a penny,
from?
two a penny.
Yeah. And also, one of my favorites, No News is Good News Day.
Oh, that's every day.
No News is Good News Day. Who would have thought that it's No News is Good News Day? Are You Okay Day? Are you okay?
Every day.
You should
Are You
call
Okay Day.
someone and say, are you okay? And that goes along with the National Day of Encouragement.
Oh, yes.
Today is the do a bit to uplift those around you. So
Again, should be an every day.
a National Police Woman Day.
Oh,
How about that?
there you go.
Thank a police woman for her service today. National School Picture Day. That's one that I know.
All right, so a story about that.
Yes, let's head.
There was this teacher who every year, from his first year to when he retired, wore the same outfit. for school pictures.
I love it.
What a great idea.
Oh, yeah. That's a fantastic idea. I know. Okay, that's about all I got.
Okay.
I kid.
I've got a couple funnies here.
Oh, no.
Never make snow angels in a dog park, Mark.
I think that'd be right. That'd be a good idea.
I never make the same mistake twice. I make it 5 or 6 times just to be sure.
Okay.
And have you ever talked to someone about something and they laugh? Maybe, especially appearance. We all know that mirrors don't lie, and I'm just grateful that they don't laugh. So after winning the game, I decided to throw the ball into the crowd like they do on TV. Apparently, it's unacceptable in bowling.
You think?
Sometimes you meet someone, and from the first moment that you want to spend your whole life without them.
Yeah. I understand that. Yeah.
I know passwords have changed. They also ask, it's funny that I've seen this before, that technology is now asking us to prove that we're a human.
Right.
But passwords, sometimes you say, it's got to have this and got to have that. So here's one. It says, sorry, but your password must contain at least 8 characters, upper and lowercase letter, a symbol or number, a hieroglyphic, a haiku, a musical note, the feather of a hawk, and a drop of unicorn blood.
Wow. No kidding.
Some of them are like that.
Oh, yeah. Yes, they are.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. That's just not right.
Like, what are you trying to do to us?
I know.
Okay, let's see here. I told my suitcases that there will be no vacation this year. Now I'm dealing with emotional baggage.
Ooh. Golly.
Then there was this sign
That's almost a dad joke.
that said, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you. I'm going to say that again. You can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you.
That horse out here.
And the longest drum solo, you think maybe Buddy Rich or Gene Krupa or somebody like that back in the day, but the longest drum solo was 10 hours and 26 minutes. It was performed by a child sitting behind me on a Delta flight from L.A. to Tokyo.
Yes. You got that. Oh, my gosh. And the parents don't do anything about it.
No. They smile and go, what a good boy.
I know it, yeah.
As he kicks the seat also. Oh, that's all for this hour, folks. We thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can listen to additional shows at stlintune.com. Consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue to grow. Thanks to Bob Berthasell for our theme music. Thanks to Mark Maxey, our guest, and co-host Mark Langston. We thank you for being a part of our community of curious minds. St. Louis in Tune is a production of Motif Media Group and the U.S. Radio Network. Remember to keep seeking, keep learning, walk worthy, and let your light shine. For St. Louis in Tune, I'm Arnold Stricker.